the invincible Empress. The stars belonged to her. For 20 long cycles, the Empress had swept through systems like a firestorm. No planet had resisted her for long. Her war fleets were unmatched. Her armies were trained since birth to fight, conquer, and never retreat. Her name was known in every corner of the galaxy, whispered in fear, spoken with reverence. She wore no crown, only a silver helm that gleamed in every broadcast. Billions had seen it, and billions had knelt before it. Her empire was built on speed and fear. Whole planets surrendered without a single shot. The Empress did not negotiate. She simply gave one warning: kneel or be broken. Few dared test her. She stood on the bridge of her command ship, the Dominance. It was the size of a small moon and looked like a blade slicing through the void. Her officers bowed deeply as she passed. She said little. Her presence was enough. One of her generals approached, nervous. "Empress," he began, not daring to look into her eyes. "A new system has been discovered beyond the void region. It's not on our star maps, it's strange." She turned to him, expression unreadable. "Strange?" He nodded. "The system is not protected by a defense grid, but our scouts reported ruins on the moons, and they found a beacon, old, ancient, but still active." The Empress was silent. The bridge grew quiet, every officer listening. "What did the beacon say?" she asked. The general swallowed. "It repeated a message in our language, just 5 words. He looked pale as he repeated it. "Do not approach. Humans live here." There was a long silence. "Humans?" she said, as if tasting the word. "No record of such a species exists," another officer said quickly. "It could be a forgotten colony." The Empress gave a thin smile. "Then we will remind them who rules the stars." She gave the command to move the fleet. Within minutes, dozens of warships changed course, diving into the dark toward the unknown system. The fleet emerged near a yellow star. Several planets circled it, one of them blue and green, full of life. Scans showed signs of civilization, cities, satellites, power grids, but no military presence, no warships, no defense ring, no anti-orbital weapons. The Empress raised an eyebrow. "They truly are forgotten. This will be quick." But just then, something strange happened. Their long-range comms picked up a signal. It wasn't a distress call, it wasn't a surrender. It was music. A soft tune filled the bridge. Simple. Peaceful. Human voices followed, speaking calmly in a language the translators barely understood. Then another voice took over, calm, male, steady. "If you're hearing this," the voice said, "you've come too far. Please leave. We wish for peace, but we are not afraid." The Empress listened without blinking. "Prepare the ground units," she said at last. "We land within the hour." 3 battalions dropped onto the planet's surface. The Empress did not expect resistance. She rarely needed more than 1 battalion, but she wanted to send a message. The soldiers touched down in an empty city. It was quiet. No people, no soldiers, no defense. Still, her scanners showed life nearby. Human life. That's when things began to go wrong. First, the soldiers lost contact with command. Then 1 battalion vanished from radar. No explosions. No weapons fire. Just silence. A scout drone showed images. Strange ones. Human figures moved in the shadows, fast and silent. They carried no visible weapons. Yet somehow they overwhelmed trained soldiers in minutes. Bodies vanished. Gear left behind. No blood. No signs of struggle. It wasn't war. It was something else. The Empress frowned. How? Her generals had no answer. She gave the order. Send the champion. In her empire there were many warriors, but only one champion. He was born and bred for war. No one had ever beaten him. Not once. Tall, armored in black, he spoke only in battle. He stepped onto the landing deck, nodded once, and dropped into the city alone. Everyone on the bridge watched the live feed. The champion moved quickly, clearing streets, marking heat signatures. He reached a building where the last signal was lost. Then suddenly the screen went black. No sound, no video. Just one line of text appeared. He has been humbled. The bridge froze. The Empress rose slowly. She said only one word. Prepare my armor. For the first time in decades, she would go to the surface herself. The human in the shadows. The air on the human world was rich, thick with scents of trees, ocean, and smoke. The Empress stood tall in her obsidian armor, cape trailing behind her as she walked through the abandoned city street. Her guards followed, silent and alert. Drones buzzed overhead. Nothing moved. Yet the silence felt loud. Too loud. There were no people, no resistance. But something was here, something that had already taken her best warriors. She paused near a shattered statue in the city center. It once showed a human holding a small child. Now the head was missing. Burn marks covered the base, but there was no sign of recent combat. Whatever took down her troops did it without guns or bombs. Report, she ordered. A scout officer approached, visor glowing faintly. Your Grace, we found traces of energy unlike anything we've seen. It's focused, controlled, like they're using power fields as tools, not weapons. She narrowed her eyes. That is not possible. Before he could answer, a loud clang echoed nearby. Everyone froze. Motion. 3 blocks away, one of the soldiers whispered. The Empress turned and gave a single nod. 4 guards moved forward, weapons ready. They advanced toward the sound. Slow. Steady. Then it happened. The air shimmered. A blur of movement, one scream, and all 4 guards vanished, not killed, not hit. Just gone. Only their weapons dropped to the ground. The Empress took a step forward. Then he appeared. A man. Just one. He stood alone in the street, hands behind his back. No armor, no weapon, just plain clothes and a calm face. Leave, he said. The Empress raised her hand, and every rifle pointed at him. You? She asked, voice cold. You took down my champion? The man nodded once. He fought well, strong, but strength is not enough here. The Empress stared at him. This was no soldier. He looked ordinary, and yet her instincts, sharpened through 100 battles, screamed danger. I do not negotiate, she said. He tilted his head. Neither do I. With a wave of her hand, she gave the order to fire. But before a single shot was fired, the guns powered down. Each one, rifles, pistols, drones, shut off as if touched by a ghost. Her soldiers panicked, checking systems. No signal. All weapons are dead. The Empress's calm cracked slightly. How? The man walked forward. Slow, steady. You brought fear to the stars, he said. But fear doesn't work on us. He stopped 5 paces from her. His eyes were steady. We've seen worse, we've been worse. You think you control the galaxy, but you never met us. She reached for her blade, a long, curved weapon forged in plasma. It hissed as it activated. The man didn't flinch. I will break you, she said. I hope you try, he answered. Then everything changed. The ground beneath them rippled. The city flickered. Not from damage, but from illusion. Buildings shimmered, roads cracked, and a hidden structure began to rise from beneath, smooth black humming with impossible energy. Her officers gasped. A base? One whispered. No, the Empress muttered. A fortress. It had been hidden, not with tech, but with something else. The human turned back toward it. You stepped into our home thinking you'd win because you always did. But this place, this world, is a mirror. She frowned. A mirror? He looked over his shoulder. It shows you who you really are. You call yourself Empress, but you're just another invader. We've buried many like you. Then, with a final nod, He stepped into the fortress. Doors closed behind him, and the city, the whole area, went dark. No signals. No scans. No contact. The Empress stood alone in the silence for the first time in her long reign, unsure. The fortress of forgotten fire, the Empress did not speak for some time. The darkness that covered the human city wasn't simple shadow. It was thick, almost alive. It jammed her sensors, blocked her fleet's scans, and swallowed even the strongest signal relays. She was blind. Worse, she was uncertain, and that had never happened before. Her shuttle returned her to the Dominance, where her top advisors waited in silence. The Empress's armor still shimmered from the surface dust, but her face was hard and calm. She turned to her chief of science. "Tell me what that was." The woman swallowed. "Not a defense system, not by our understanding. The humans used something older. We found partial traces of gravitational shaping, not just tech, something organic, something mental." The Empress raised an eyebrow. "Mental? It's possible," the scientist said slowly, "that the humans have unlocked a form of control over space-time. With thought." The room went silent. "No species can do that," one general protested. The Empress remained quiet. Then she said, "We will learn." For the next 3 days, the fleet surrounded the human world. Probes dropped. Satellites launched. Every attempt to get inside the blackout zone failed. Some returned scrambled. Some never returned at all. Inside the city, nothing moved. But at night, from orbit, they could see lights. Faint, moving in patterns across the old streets. Some said it was a message. Some said it was a warning. Then, on the 4th day, something new happened. The black fortress at the city center opened again. The same human stepped out, walking alone into the empty streets. This time he held something, a small device, ancient yet pulsing with unknown energy. From her command deck, the Empress watched as he held it up, and suddenly, every screen aboard the Dominance flickered to life. His face appeared across every ship, every terminal. He spoke calmly. "You are standing at the edge of what your empire can understand. We are not your enemy, but we will not be ruled." He paused, eyes sharp. "You want conquest, but what we hold is beyond that." Behind him, the fortress began to glow, not with fire or weapons, but memory. A projection rose above it, showing images. Other conquerors, other wars, and humans, always in the center, sometimes beaten, sometimes burning, but never erased. "We survived what broke entire galaxies," he said, "and we became something else." The signal ended. The Empress turned away from the screen, her voice quiet. "Begin. Extraction." Her generals stared, but Emperor, she looked at them, just once. "I said withdraw." As the fleet began pulling away, her thoughts burned. This was not defeat. It was a new frontier, something far more dangerous than weapons, a species that did not fear her, that spoke with calm certainty. She had seen fear in the eyes of countless enemies. But that man, that human, had shown her something worse. Pity. Back. In her private chamber, the Empress stared at the stars. She reached for her blade, placing it down before her. Her empire was built on strength, fear, and control. But now, she had seen a world built on survival, willpower, and something deeper, something unspoken. A storm was coming, and this time, she wouldn't be the one starting it. Lessons from the past, the Empress had never turned her fleet around. Not once. But now her warships floated just outside the human system. Silent, holding position. She hadn't called it retreat. Not out. Loud. Not to her commanders, but inside her own mind she couldn't lie to herself. Something about these humans was different. She sat alone in her chamber. No guards, no council. In front of her hovered a projection, the last message sent by the human man. She played it again, and again. "We are not your enemy, but we will not be ruled." His voice was steady, his eyes unshaken. He wasn't threatening. He was warning. For a conqueror like her, that was new. But one word kept echoing in her head. Humbled. She leaned forward and spoke to the ship's AI. Bring me all records. Everything we know, or suspect, about humans. The AI responded instantly. Data is limited. The species was lost in records after the second collapse. Assumed extinct. Estimated timeline. 15,000 years ago. 15,000 years? No other species had survived that long without joining the galactic fold, or being conquered. Show me what's left. What followed were fragments, broken messages, scattered recordings, ruins from far-off systems marked as unclaimed. In every piece, humans were there, on the edge of war, standing alone, or sometimes protecting species weaker than themselves. A pattern emerged. They didn't conquer. They endured. The next day, she summoned her oldest advisor, a man who had served since the beginning of her rise. Do you believe fear still rules the stars? She asked him. He bowed. Yes, Empress. As it always has. She looked past him, out at the swirling stars. Then why did they not fear us? The advisor hesitated. Perhaps they learned to live without fear, long before we arrived. At that moment, a message came in, from the human system. It was not encrypted, not threatening. It simply said, "You're invited." The Empress frowned. To what? No answer followed, but the meaning was clear. It was a choice. She could leave, forever marked by a quiet defeat. Or she could return, not with fire, but with open eyes. For the first time in her life, the Empress did not know what to do, but her instinct, the same one that built an empire, whispered something different now. Curiosity, she gave the command. Prepare one shuttle. Only me. The landing was quiet. No soldiers, no traps, no crowds. Just that same man standing alone outside the fortress. Welcome back, he said. She nodded once. You humbled my army. He nodded. That wasn't the goal. You wanted war. We gave you understanding. She studied him. And if I had refused to listen? We would have survived. We always do. Inside the fortress, he showed her things that defied her empire's science, machines that healed, tools that reshaped matter, libraries filled with lost languages, and energy fields powered by thought, not fuel. This is human legacy, he said. We lost our place in the stars, but we never stopped learning. We hid, we adapted. We grew inward, not outward. She asked, why did you not strike first? His answer was simple. Because we remember what it's like to be invaded. She was quiet. That answer cut deeper than any weapon. As she left the fortress that evening, the man walked with her one last time. You could return with fire, he said, or you could return with questions. She stopped and looked at him. For the first time in her life, the Empress felt something new growing inside her. Respect. And maybe the beginning of change. The fire within. The Dominance waited in orbit, its metal skin gleaming under the soft glow of the human sun. The Empress stood at the shuttle's open hatch, her cape gently flowing in the windless air of the docking bay. She looked different, not in appearance. Her armor was still polished, her posture proud. But in presence, something had changed. Inside. Behind her, the fortress slowly sealed itself, its walls folding into smooth black stone, as if the structure never existed. The human man didn't follow her to the shuttle. He simply gave a small nod from the distance, hands behind his, back watching without fear, without worry. She had arrived seeking another conquest, but now she was leaving with something unexpected. Not weakness, but wisdom. Back aboard the Dominance, her officers rushed to her, eager for news. Many had feared the worst when she went alone. Others expected her to return with chains in her hands. Instead, she gave a single order. Open a secure channel to the Council of Systems. There was silence in the command center. Her officers exchanged uncertain glances. This was not the Empress they knew. Still, the command was obeyed. When the Council of Systems, a fragile alliance of frightened worlds, appeared on the screen, they braced themselves. Many had begged for help when the Empress's fleets first approached the human system. Their pleas had been ignored. Now they stared, confused as the Empress herself appeared before them. Her voice was calm, clear. "I have encountered something we cannot conquer," she said. "A species that does not seek war, but cannot be broken. They hold knowledge far beyond our reach." The council members murmured. Some looked fearful, others angry. One dared to speak. "Are you surrendering?" She raised an eyebrow. "No, I do not surrender." "But you withdrew." Another said. "Your fleet retreated." The Empress leaned forward. "I did not retreat." I paused. A long pause followed her words. Then she said, "We stand at the edge of something greater than fear. These humans, they are not our enemies unless we choose to become theirs. I suggest we don't." Later, in her private quarters, the Empress looked at the stars once more, not as a conqueror, but as a student. The galaxy she thought she had tamed was far wider than she imagined. And humans, the forgotten race, had shown her that power was not always loud, not always violent. True power was choice, and the ability to hold back when you could destroy. The message was clear now. They were not weak. They were waiting for the galaxy to finally grow up. Months passed. The Empress no longer expanded her borders. Instead, she sent quiet ships, with scientists, not soldiers, diplomats, not drones. She restructured parts of her empire, not out of fear, not out of defeat, but because something in her had been humbled, and the galaxy noticed. New alliances formed. Old enemies reached out, and somewhere on a quiet world, the human man stood watching the stars, knowing the Empress had changed the day. She met someone she could not bend, because for the first time she had looked at a mirror and saw herself.